Adam
Hey Jill.
from.
When that countdown started and we recorded, I almost started talking as if it's as if it was me doing the interview.
Well, welcome to my podcast, Conversations with Friends. We've talked about this for a little while, and you've had me on your podcast a couple times.
Yeah,
And what I aim to do here is just put everything down and relax and have a conversation about you, your life, interact, what's going on, hear about what makes you tick type thing,
yeah,
and we'll see where it goes. So I was just saying
sounds good
before
to
we,
me.
okay, yeah, I got this little echo problem. I'm going to just say that even in the recording. Hopefully, when this goes live, there won't be an echo.
That's right.
But if I'm going to really try not to cut you off. Sometimes I do that, but I'm going to blame the echo.
That's right.
So, anyways,
It'll be great, and I'll make sure to be a little slower in my responses too. That'll help with the echo, maybe.
okay. Well, I just want to give a little intro in terms of how I met you. I think it was on X. I always want to
It
call it
was.
Twitter. Was it on X?
Yeah, it was on a.
Yeah, and I started posting a lot of Sabrina Wallace's work and getting a little more serious about what I was posting there, not just kind of hanging out and lurking.
Right.
And I think you reached out or and we're doing a podcast and asked me on, and I was felt honored, and it kind of helped me jump back into the podcasting world a little bit. And you have an awesome podcast called Conversations and Higher Vibrations. Is that right?
That's right.
And
You
it's
nailed
on
it.
Rumble. I know you have accounts on Instagram and TikTok. And is there anywhere else?
Yeah, I put the podcast out on Spotify.
Oh, right.
More,
Okay.
more, more so because I like listening on Spotify. It's no shade on Rumble. It's just that, like, if I'm driving in, my truck or whatever, I turn on Spotify, and it's just, easier. So I do have it on YouTube too. Up until sometime when I say something that I shouldn't, by the powers that be, and then they'll clip me, and that's fine. But X is usually where I'm at, but the two places where you can find the podcast are Rumble and Spotify all the time. But you can also go to YouTube. Most of the episodes are there too. And
Okay.
yeah, Instagram and TikTok. I'm trying them both out. I'm not much of a social media person, so
Ah,
I had kind of fought wanting to go on Instagram for it, just because the whole meta space and all that. And I was like, I'm not doing Facebook. I know you've had your own trials and
yeah.
tribulations with that. TikTok, because that's where the young kids. That's like where my kids are at. And I'm like, sure, I'll try it. So I'm a little spread out across a lot of social media platforms. That won't probably continue forever, but for now, I'll give it a try.
I think that's good to spread out and see what works. That's kind of how I've always done it. And
Yeah.
it depends. I really am glad to be off Facebook, and Instagram is so closely connected that I feel your cringe. So
Right.
yeah.
Right.
So why don't we start out and you tell me a little bit about your life in turn. You can start anywhere you want. If you want to talk about like early years or wherever you feel like jumping in.
Okay. Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll start pretty close to the beginning. I'll try to keep it shorter. Um, maybe not short. So
Oh, good.
grew up in Pennsylvania. Grew up in kind of rural country. Had a great upbringing. Blue collar type upbringing. Never wanted for anything, but never really had like grandiose large things.
Mm-hmm.
I was into things like music on one side and sports on the other, so it
Okay.
meant a lot of people knew me because I was either in marching band or in varsity baseball or in a musical or whatever else because I sing and play drums, or
Wow.
did.
You're a Renaissance
Yeah,
man.
I guess so, but I say all that not to toot my own
No.
horn. It's more to say that a lot of people knew me, but I don't know if they knew me. Like they knew me because I was in a bunch of different stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So at any rate, I felt like I had a really good upbringing. Never had any large issues, stuff like that. Certainly during my high school years, I felt like, okay, like most kids probably do, like it's time to leave the nest, right? Like I wanted to leave pretty quickly. So college was that answer for me. But since I grew up in a small town, I was not going to like go to some city somewhere and like totally want to, escape from that. That had been too overwhelming for me. So I chose a smaller college, still in Pennsylvania. And then I like to say that I used a year of grad school to get south. I moved to North Carolina. And I thought that I'd move there and do some grad school and see what was going on with that, and then just keep moving and moving and moving after that. But by and large, for the last 22 years, I've stayed here right in North Carolina. It just has a way of kind of holding on to you. It's about as far south as you can get without seasons going away. Like you still have some semblance of winter. That's kind of what I'd say. And it's a great place. So that's sort of,
Okay. Yeah. Are you near the mountains, or is everybody
no,
near?
right in the center of the state. So I'm a couple hours from the beach and a couple more
Nice.
hours from the mountains. So kind of right in the middle.
Okay.
So that's kind of my upbringing. But I would say, in general, my experience certainly in my 20s and even my early 30s, to say I mentioned that I had a great upbringing from my perspective. I feel like a lot of like my trials and tribulations I've kind of led myself through. Like I got myself involved in either hard relationships or just hard situations for myself, where it's kind of like I had to learn lessons in spite of myself. And I think that's relevant to bring up to, maybe just the audience or to you, because if I started like saying what I've done in the past year or in the past couple years, you'd be like, how in the world did you get to that? Well,
That's exactly what I want to hear. That
I
stuff.
brought myself into some rather low points in my life, and I had one of the lowest points about 10 years ago or thereabouts. And it wasn't just due to a divorce, it was just due to kind of how I was living my life at that point. I was living a rather, I'd say, destructive type of life. And I don't mean that I was destitute and homeless. I know a lot of people, that's their low point. My low point was not that. So, but it was a low point for me. And so over that time, I went to lots and lots of therapy. I went to lots and lots of kind of inner work for myself, not always on the professional level, more of just kind of just sort of searching internally for me. And that evolution's continued to this day. So I would say around 2015 and beyond, I will say that, Jill, what I feel like I'm living on is on bonus time. What I mean is I've been through a lot of things, and this is the happiest I've ever been in my life. And it's felt that way almost every day since then.
Wow.
Almost kind of like a miniature death, if you will, that some part of me stayed there and I kind of evolved from that. And so, sometimes I describe this to my wife where I'm like, I'm the happiest I've ever been. And she's like, what do you mean? I'm like, I just mean that where I sit here right now talking to you, Jill, is the happiest I've ever been. It doesn't mean that I don't have low points still and that 3D stuff happens, but like that's kind of that's kind of my mindset. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you. I guess, okay, so 2015, that was a big turnaround.
Yeah.
Or turnaround, or where you started to move, where I guess I would call it, if I could relate it to my life, kind of working more for yourself and not against yourself in terms of
agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, and some of the inner work had a little bit, maybe before that, maybe a couple years before, 2012, 2013, something like that. But yeah, I would package it to say the last 10 years have been inexplicably better.
Well, that's great.
Yeah.
I'm really glad to hear that. I can relate in a lot of ways to that, having that point in your life where you pivot, or, you turn the ship.
That's right.
How many more metaphors can I use here? But I hear you. So since that time, I guess, what has been your journey, your process, and what tools? Give me a little idea of what has been kind of guiding you, or from within.
It's a good question. I would say around the, I don't know if it matters about years, but let's say about 8 years ago or something like that. That'd be around the 2018 timeframe. I started listening to, I heard the term of podcasts and things like that, and I certainly read books before it, but I felt drawn to start listening to long form podcasts and, pick your topic. I kind of jumped around, but I started to kind of form this thing for myself that I would listen to like a topic or a particular show or a particular something for a period of time. And I would get to a point where it felt like, okay, I've kind of learned what I've learned from there and I'm moving on to something else. And so I started sort of jumping around to different things and kind of not just from the things that I listened, but even sort of my own inner reflection of where I felt I was going. Not knowing where I was going, I just kind of just moved through different things. So some of those were really big, popular podcasts. Some of them weren't. And this is something that I've talked about fairly often. I don't know if you and I have, but I feel like if you listen to yourself, you get to a point in time when it's time to move on. You've learned it, you've pulled things from it, and it's time to sort of move on.
Absolutely.
So I'm jumping ahead now to last year. Fast forward to that is when I decided to join X, Twitter, and I'm sure I had an account for a long time that was like a personal account or whatever, and I was like, I didn't really know what it was about. I didn't understand, like, you mean you make a bunch of posts and people read your posts and repost them, and okay, well, what are you doing? I didn't really understand, but for some reason I had this strong inclination to want to get, I'll say, like, more involved. And initially when I joined, which was March of last year, it was, I think it was a want to try to help. It was almost to try to like post and sort of put my spin on things from a political side of stuff.
Okay.
I was never really involved in politics before. Like I've voted in several presidential elections on both sides. I have voted for Democrats.
Yep, me too.
I have voted for Republican. I've voted 3 times, and somehow inexplicably all 3 that I voted for won. Take that for what it's worth. You could probably tell the ones I voted for, but anyway, that's neither here nor there. But that was kind of what I was framed around the posts. And a lot of those got a lot of, sometimes the weirdest things would get like the most views, and I'm like, that's kind of weird. But I eventually, probably like during the summertime, so it didn't take too long, it started to feel kind of empty. I just felt like, I kind of questioned, I was like, what am I doing? Like, the travesties of the world, it's wonderful to educate people, but a lot of other people are educating people too. So is this really where I want to be? And it's not that I felt like I needed to become some, like, I don't know. I never had aspirations of like being an influencer or getting tons of posts and making money off that. But like, I just felt empty about it.
Sure.
So I have always been a spiritual person, and I was a member of a church, not active any longer, when I was growing up. So the concept of God and a higher power has always been with me. It's gotten much stronger recently, more on the spiritual side. But I felt myself more drawn to like that kind of content, either creating it or reading about it and kind of educating myself. I would quantify me becoming more, I think it's overused, but the term awakened, probably last May or thereabouts, which probably was probably around the same time I was like, I'm getting a little more tired of posting about politics stuff. So it led me into more things on the spiritual type realm. And the more I did that, the more it kind of felt good. And it didn't feel good because it was getting lots of, like the same views that I had before. Like polarizing things get a lot of views, right? It gets a lot of clicks.
Yeah.
And that wasn't for me what it was any longer. And I started to center into my heart. I started to center into positivity and how you can, for lack of a better term, manifest things into reality. Set your mind and focus on things. And so like each layer kind of build upon that. And there were certainly plenty of rabbit holes, Jill, that I went down that I was like, yeah, this is not for me. And I'd back my head out of that rabbit hole and I'd look to something else. So, and then the other thing that happened in May was that I heard this voice, and it wasn't someone talking to me. It was my own inner self. But I tended to enjoy alcohol way too much. Not to the point that I wasn't functional at a job or fairly functional in my relationships, but it was just too much. And in May, I came to an understanding within me that alcohol wasn't going to be a passenger on my train for much longer. And I listened to it, and I was like, okay. And I think whatever internal or from God was saying is like, it's almost like it was, I know you're not ready to hear this, but I'm just going to give this to you as a test and just see what you do with it. Let me see what you do with it. Well, I did the best thing I could for myself, Jill. You know what I did?
What'd you do?
I didn't tell anyone. I told no one what was happening. And my wife has had her own strong opinions on wanting to stop drinking alcohol, and certainly her concern about, the amount I consumed too was there. But I didn't tell her. And I didn't tell her to be secretive. I just told her so I didn't want to be like, here's the assignment I'm about to do, and I'm handing it to you before it's even done. Aren't I so great? That's what I didn't want to do. Because that sets up that cycle where you say you're going to do something and you don't do it. And
Yep.
So, so as all these other things were happening in my evolution on X and otherwise, around the January timeframe, I stopped drinking alcohol. And it wasn't because it was one, terrible night that I did all these awful things or something happened. I just ran out of justification for why I would make time for it. It just didn't feel like a passenger anymore that I wanted to have.
Carry.
Yeah. So, so that was relatively, well, it was very easy once I got to that point. And I know I want to say this for anyone on your audience to be like, well, that's not me, and things are really hard, and like I get that. I would say if you want to quantify it as an addiction, which I don't care if you do, if you want to call me an alcoholic, you can do that too. I don't really care what the label is. But it wasn't a physical dependency. Like when I stopped, it wasn't like I had DTs or anything else like that. I'm kind of one of those people that when I make up my mind to commit to something, it's going to happen whether I need to put effort into it or not. That's just sort of how I'm wired. I just will it to occur. So some extraordinary things happened after that.
Wow.
Within about a week, this is in January. So within about a week, I received a healing session from someone. And I had been praying during this time, so I prayed, and I reference this like you can see. There's a window right here. I have it closed right now, but I looked out the window and I prayed to God and I said, I am ready. I am ready for whatever it is that you want to show me or whatever will appear, good, bad, or indifferent. I'm ready. Just bring it on. Even if it means a huge wholesale change and something that is not going to be thrilling to go through, I'm ready. And I got back on X within a couple hours. And a person who I knew gave healing sessions, but I didn't know much about it. I didn't even know what that really meant. She had made it like 5 minutes before. And she said, the first 10 people to respond to this post, I will give a healing session to. So, I responded, and I didn't ask for one for me. I wanted to donate it to someone else because like I mentioned, I've been living on bonus time, meaning like I'm not running out of time. Time doesn't really exist in that way for me. Like I'm great. I feel good health-wise. I'm happy. And so, so she did commit to giving that healing session to that other person, but she's also like, you're going to get one too. And I'm like, okay. I mean, that's fine, whatever. So that's where that happened. So.
Wow.
So I received that healing session, and I can go back to the healing session stuff because I know you wanted to ask about that.
I do, but keep going.
Yeah. So, so I had that healing session. I wasn't supposed to experience anything during it. I was just supposed to feel calm, relaxed. If I fell asleep, fine. Like she was doing the quote work, which is through prayer and God. But I did receive a lot. I'll talk about that later. But
Cool.
so that was maybe, I want to say it was around January 30th. A couple days later, I did some meditations because of a book that I bought, and the guy who's pretty famous, his name's Greg Braden.
Yep.
He's like, I'm doing a live webinar. You paid for the book, so you can join this like larger virtual audience, and they did a couple like 3-minute meditations. I had some interesting experiences during those 3-minute meditations, which I'm like, I wonder what that's about. And the very next day, I got fired from my job.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was laid off. Laid off meaning like there was a severance attached to it, and it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't like I was going to go out and have to find
To
work
live on
right
the
away.
street.
Right.
Yeah.
What it meant to me basically is that, Adam, you have the next few months to do what you want to do. Like you basically are frozen in time for what you're doing employment wise. And I didn't need to backpack across Europe to find myself, Jill, but I got to lean into the things that I wanted to do. I got to read a few more books. I got to start this, podcast that you mentioned. Like I got to kind of do some of the inner work that I was now afforded an opportunity for it, which I was so fortunate. I remember even getting off the call and my wife was like, "You're a little too calm. Like, are you okay?
Right.
Like, why are you?" I said, "There's a plan for everything." I was at that job for 10 years. I have all the respect in the world for why they made the decision. It wasn't just me. It was like, I don't know, 8% of the workforce or something, like a couple thousand people. So
Oh boy.
it
Yeah.
wasn't a personal thing. But I mentioned that piece because that healing session, and I'd stopped drinking alcohol. And what I didn't do is go back to drinking alcohol. What's the first thing happens if a bad thing happens in your life?
Right.
You lean into what
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know. And I was like, no, I'm good. Like I'm good. Those aren't coincidences to me.
No.
So during that, I will say during that first healing session, I after it was done, and she said, well, I didn't really see, feel as much about it. I wasn't in the right headspace, Adam. I should do it again. Like you didn't get what I was trying to provide. So let's do it again. And I was like, well, I got lots on my side. I felt very calm. With my eyes closed, like I had visuals of things. You could call it hallucinating if you want to, but like beautiful colors and things like that. And I was like, it was wonderful. So you're welcome to give me another one, but like I feel great. She's like, well, the other thing I'll say is all of us are healers. And I didn't understand what she meant by that. She's like, whether you want to imagine that light is coming out of your heart or out of your hand to another person to help them, heal them, whatever that is, it's the power of belief. She's like, you're a healer. And I'm like, I didn't believe that. I can believe and have faith that if you are good to other people when you put your own light out, that it'll reflect back. I believe that part. But as far as saying, oh, Adam's a healer now and he's going to go, cure cancer and stuff like that, like that's not what I
Wasn't
thought.
in your in your toolbox or in your thought process.
Correct. But it did open my heart. Again, everything I feel is heart-centered. So as you and I have talked about, but it did open my heart to like the possibilities of, well, it can't hurt because if this is through me, it's not from me, it's from God. So my son got sick, not a bad sickness, something like the flu or something like that. And so a couple days after I'd just been laid off, just had that, these are all building blocks. And I'm still doing posting and reading, stuff like that. But, and I know I'm a little choppy with this, so.
Not at all.
But, so I remember asking him, like, can we do, and I didn't want to call it a healing session because I didn't want to freak out my young son to be like, Dad's going to heal me? Aren't I supposed to take medicine or something? Like, what's going on? He's lost his few marbles he had left. So I played a little bit of music, some type of, probably Hertz frequency, solfeggio stuff. And I said, just give me 9 minutes. Well, I fibbed. It was actually 11 minutes because I wanted a little more time. But I'd done a couple of these like little meditations and other stuff. And I'm like, I'm just going to try it.
Yeah.
It can't do any harm. He may have gotten better just because he was going to get better and it was going to clear out of his system quickly. But more quickly than I expected and he expected, he recovered. I don't even think he missed a day of school.
Wow.
My stepson a couple days before had, I thought, the same sickness, and he was like laid out for 5 or 7 or 8 days. So not that I'm the reason that he got better. He could have got better for whatever other reasons, but what I did didn't hurt, and it might have helped. So that gave me more encouragement to start thinking, maybe I should do this more often. So then my stepson, who I mentioned, had surgery. He had his his wisdom teeth removed.
Mm-hmm.
And I offered the same thing too. And he was a little more leery. He's a little older. He's like, I mean, it's kind of weird, but he afforded me one time in a room
Uh-huh.
to do it. We just laid on the couch. I think I laid on the floor. I listened to music, and I had, again, I had more visuals, and I had like a tingling along like the right side of my body, which is where he was. I started thinking about like what I would say silently to myself about it. So I started sort of reciting things. So now I'm going to jump forward to now, at least on the healing
Okay.
session side. So starting out January 30th, where I received one, never knew about it before, never had heard of it, let alone have visuals. I'm now including you, like 120 sessions deep or something, and around 19 people. You were number 19. And I only mentioned the volume to say, like, I used to try to make notes of like the things I saw and the stuff that I felt and everything, but I haven't been as diligent in the case notes. But I wanted to, I think it's as much for me as to say to anyone else, to kind of legitimize for myself that like this has been a volume of work that I've done, and I believe everyone has a gift. Now, did they have a gift exactly like this? I think it's possible, but it may also present in a different way. But
Yeah.
all of it is God-given. So just so everyone can hear and just see me looking in the camera to say, it's God-given. This is not me claiming to be a Messiah or anything else. It's God is
Right.
eternal.
No,
God,
I don't take it that way at all. And I don't think that will be the takeaway that anyone is listening.
good. Yeah, God is eternal within all of us. That is what I believe, and that's from a spiritual
Yeah.
aspect. That's from a higher power aspect, not a religion.
Right with
Which
you.
there's nothing wrong with a religion if that's how you get there. That's great too, whatever
Yep.
way you get there. So, so that's kind of like the one side that I've been doing, and so far up to this point, I've just donated that amount of time. If you want to take 30 minutes times 120, like that's not a small amount.
No.
And it's just sort of grown from there. And at the same time, like in a parallel track or some other track, I launched this podcast because I had the time afforded to me. You know, I didn't have to go to a job.
Yep.
So I started doing that in about March, and that led me to reaching out and seeking people like yourself, Jill. Not that I went out looking for a Jill Wordworth, but I was looking for other people that seemed to be doing good things and
Kind of
willing to talk,
like-minded.
like-minded, or even willing to talk about what they do. So I don't know where this podcast will go, but I appreciate that you mentioned it. But like that might be a vehicle for something else, or it could be a vehicle that just led me to people like you, Jill, to be able to talk. I mean, that's why I named it Conversations, because and higher vibration, just meaning whatever moves people towards helping other people, whatever that means, however that gets there. Just let's not all just talk about the mired things of politics or just about where is my next paycheck going to come from, or how am I going to get the next gallon of milk or whatever. And that doesn't dismiss that those
Right.
things of the world are real and they're here and you have to think about them, and that you should spend time with your family and your loved ones and all those things. That's just kind of what led me towards that. So I'll
Yep.
put a bow in that for now because I've been talking for a while.
No, it's great.
Go ahead.
I did not know about the healing component or that you were doing this. I mean, you mentioned it kind of casually in our first interview, and then a little more in the last one, but I didn't know quite the extent of it. And that's to me, it's just you can really see God's hand in that through
Yeah.
what you shared, and just also highlighting that we all do come in. I mean, we are so unaware of, I'm going to say, our full capacity as human beings, our biofield, and all that has been like hijacked. And I think, like you said, many people just don't know that they have these abilities. We all have abilities in different areas. And
Right.
that's really, really beautiful.
Thank you.
Really.
Yeah. Yeah. I appreciate you saying that. And I
Sure.
appreciate the kind words. When I started the podcast with a co-host of mine, George, I was pretty clear, at least within myself, that I didn't want to make it about me. I wanted to make it about, that's why I wanted it to be an interview style from the jump. Like I've done a couple videos that are just me, and there's a reason why they only go 3 minutes or 9 minutes or something, because I talk a lot, but I didn't want it to make it focused on, hey, this is me and I do healing sessions and
Yeah.
sign up and do that kind of, I wanted that to just kind of organically come out, which I think is exactly what is happening, right here. So I've talked about it and people have asked. Another friend of mine has kind of interviewed me to a certain extent. So, and I covered it like that little bit in this span of a conversation. So I wanted to just let it flow and arrive at whatever it was going to be. And so that's why you probably haven't heard about it till now, because just over time, it was just going to come out. That just felt like,
Yeah.
it just felt naturally what I wanted it to be. So that's why. And you mentioned biofield. I mean, the
Aura.
probably
People understand that more.
right, or whatever you want. And we can always go down the science of it, or you can go down the spiritual of it. I tend to think it's both, because that's who I am.
I think I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like when you think of content, you mentioned Sabrina Wallace and the content that you post on. So when I mentioned like back last May when I had, it's an inflection point of awakening. It wasn't like there was a snapping of a chalk line other than for me. Like I just felt like it was a jumping point.
Okay.
My mind had opened. And I was, by another friend, was exposed to her content. And I liked her from the start, just her fiery,
Yeah.
caring. And I can see how much Sabrina cares, even beyond sometimes the words of frustration and the irritation and the things that she says. I love all of it. I know not everyone's speed is that kind of thing. But kind of like with the other podcasts I'd mentioned, like I could see the threads and the shards of light that she was trying to share through her own lens, which this is where I get like chills when I'm talking about this. So
Piloerection.
yeah, yes. So everyone is unique and has their own experience, and the more that we experience ourselves and we share that outwardly, people either resonate with it or they won't, and that's a good thing either way, right? They can say either not for me or that's for me. Everyone's path kind of goes somewhere different. Here's what I'll
Right.
say. Everyone's path is different, but I believe we all end up in the same place. So here's maybe a controversial thing that I'll say.
Okay.
I don't think it's controversial. I kind of laugh when I say it. I believe if we all are an embodiment of God, if we are all made in God's image, we are best suited to be ourselves, be who we are, and experience and learn, because each of us are if God is the universe is God, we are one aspect of the universe experience in itself. So it would be a travesty, Jill, if we didn't get to meet Jill. Same thing with me, same thing with everyone else in the world. Just share who you are, what you are, where you're at. So that's a long-winded kind of way, maybe and a little too, spiritual or woo-woo for some people, but I've let go of me sharing my experience sounding like ego and like, here's what I've done and go do what I've done, or here's what Jill's done, here's what she's learned. It just means just be yourself. Just chart whatever path that you feel led to, and some things are going to be dead ends, and some are going to be U-turns, and some are going to be a park for a while. You use metaphors, so do I. But that's kind of what I've kind of look at it as. And some people might be like, well, how are you helping people, or how are you, what are you doing? What are you doing? Why are you doing what you're doing, or why are you doing it? Is it for followers? Is it for money? Is it for this?
Right. Like people can't get their head around that.
Right.
Around it.
Right. Why would you possibly get on get in front of a web camera and talk to different people? How are you helping? I think you're just experiencing oneness with other people in the different places of life that they are, which is what you do at a regular job. It's what you do when you
True.
go to the grocery store. It's what you know, it's just a different form of interaction. So, yeah.
Well, I appreciate you sharing all of that. It was really, I want to say helpful. That doesn't really sum it up, but I got goosebumps a bunch of times while you were talking. So there's
Thank you.
something there.
Thank you.
But just on your podcast, it was different than any podcast I've been on. And I was really into trying to make a business out of podcasting, trying to make money at it while trying to maintain some layer of authenticity and working with other people to find ways to make money basically out of it. And
Yeah.
also try to help people at the same time. And it just fell flat on its face. And I appreciated that, you didn't come at me with some kind of pitch, or there was no products being sold, or
Right.
really, I love that. And we just came on and it was super low key, having a conversation, connecting, exactly what I think uh, we're here to do as humans. I think, like you said, we're in all these, we put all these like pretenses on it and bows and ribbons, and we're going to work and we're going to do this, and we're also serious about it, but we're all just here to connect and, like you've mentioned, to, I don't want to say evolve, but to open our hearts more and
Yeah.
be our purpose. Remember that we are our
Yeah,
purpose.
to experience and to learn, and it's not to dismiss it. It's good to have. I say it maybe it's good to have goals. It's good to have a
Right.
business plan and say I want to be at X amount this and X amount. I
No, there's nothing
I
wrong
think
with that.
I think there's times though that right. I think there's times though that when things just happen organically. Like I'll even say, like I don't know if I mentioned to you, but I will rejoin the workforce
You did.
in a week and a half. So, which was always the date that I was going to choose. It was going to be June 2nd for me, regardless. And I went through many conversations, and I was afforded the time. I was very fortunate. And the job I ended up choosing in the company that I will work for, the only reason that I even knew of it is because I reached out to a person who I'd worked with before. I knew he started a new job, and I was reaching out just to say, "Hey, man, I hope hey, brother, I hope you're doing well. What are you up to?" It was just
That's
a
it.
call to reconnect with a person. I had no intention of anything else. And fast forward to now, I'm going to go work at the same place. So if I wouldn't have wanted to just experience and care for another person, even if I didn't need to make that phone call, that wasn't going to make me money, that wasn't going to reach any goal or anything else, other than the goal of wanting to connect and wish someone well, just put out light, this would have never happened. Now, did I manifest that? Yeah, I would say yes. I think manifest is similar to some other words. I think there's like there's
Uh,
almost there's a clutching of pearls or a knee-jerk reaction to say, what do you mean you're going to create your own reality? It's not as up in the stars as I think we sometimes would think. Things just happen because they happen. And the best thing that ever happened to me as far as from a career standpoint was being laid off. I mean, single-handedly, that was the best thing that happened to me, because I probably would have continued just doing what was doing there and retired, and that would have been fine too. But it was wonderful that happened. Frankly, I owe them a debt of gratitude, which I've already
yeah.
been gracious. I will be gracious even more. But yeah, so I mean, it's just funny how the world works. If you're going through your experiences and you have a heart-centered approach to it, that's how you help, even if that doesn't come through in dollars and cents and whatever else. The people, I think, Jill, that you have helped by our conversation right here, or the ones that you and I have had on my podcast, or even any interactions, we may never know that.
Yeah.
And I think that's somewhat the point, that you don't get to see all of the fruits of your labor. I think you should just believe that it's going to do good, and others will do good, and it spreads like a beautiful, wonderful wildfire.
I love it.
In the best ways. Yeah.
Yeah, I think just to add a little to how I am feeling into what you're saying, just getting out of your own way, really just getting out of that those programs, the whole egoic structure that,
Right.
we've got to go to work, we've got to make money, and if you're not you don't have goals and you don't have a vision, and then you're not going to serve anything. You're not
Right.
doing anything. And having experiences in my life which kind of forced me, because I wasn't able to pursue those types of goal track, to really understand what you're saying is that,
Yeah.
you know, you could say like when the spirit moves or manifestation, but to me, I see it as like you just stopped efforting,
I
you just
agree.
kind of let it flow.
Yeah. I
So
agree with you. I agree. Yeah, and
that's awesome. And it's rare. I think, well, it's becoming, I think people are catching on. I do believe that.
yeah.
Probably more through like the work you're doing. Like we've said, people are listening, and I've had numerous people um, to me that things are turning on, like they're
Right.
lipo moments. So
Right. I agree. I wouldn't have found the people like yourself that had I not done this. And
yeah,
whether that means the podcast continues forever and ever, and I do the same volume or I do something different, I don't know. I mean, for me, I think it was more of a vehicle, and I'm going to continue doing it as much as I can, even when I rejoin the workforce.
mm-hmm.
There's no conflict of interest. I do something completely different in real life, so it doesn't matter. Other than people get to see that I'm a weirdo here online. Um,
Right,
but
right.
I've been afforded the opportunity to talk to some people that, like, I'll give you some examples.
Yeah, please.
Like, there are people that I've talked to that some are authors and have written books, and they've come to write books or help people and turned a business into it because they were, say, one friend of mine, Teresa, she had a terrible experience from the medical industry and injuries that she had and stuff like that. And that's not dismissing the medical industry, just to say that was her experience.
Mm-hmm.
I certainly have my own beliefs about it and don't really go down paths of things like that. But she decided to write books after she kind of got herself well and better. She's like, I want to help other people. And that's how she started.
Yep.
There's two people that have been on my podcast multiple times that are focused on sobriety, specifically alcohol. And it's
Yep.
because both of them had a lot of trials and tribulations about alcohol, and they moved through it and decided to create programs that they then wanted to have this as their regular day-to-day job, or it's one of their jobs and they're doing other things.
Yep.
Another guy that I know, his lifestyle, I'm saying, and his experiences were like either partying or doing other things, not really caring about the world and doing all that. And he came to sort of write his own ship and decide, I'm going to write a book about my experiences. And I'm going to start doing like Monday sessions to talk with people. And I'm going to learn about how I can help people do their own inner work. And you could dismiss us and be like, well, that's like what a life coach does. I don't know. I don't think so. But I don't care so much about labels. But meaning
Yeah.
he's built a business on that. Not for the, and I'm gonna quote a Bible verse. You'd be surprised maybe I'd do that. But I have realized that talking about abundance and success, and whatever that means, is not for the love of money, which is what in the Bible it's written. The love of money is the root of all evil.
Yeah.
Not that money is the root of all evil. So if finances gets you to a place to help other people, there is nothing wrong with that at all. Which again, that's where the chills come. I can see them. I won't hold them up to the camera again. But so those kinds of experiences and learning about those people have given me a lot of inspiration to know that if in a couple weeks I found people that were willing to come on and talk to me and talk for themselves and kind of just to share their own experiences with no exchange of money. It's not like they were paid to come on. It's not like you said, it's not like I have advertisements or anything else. I was just doing this because I had the time, and I've donated my money to buy the silly little lights to make it look okay, and this little recording device, stuff like that. So it's all donation based, just happened to be my own donation. But other people have made a real concerted effort to focus all in on wanting to help people in whatever way they felt like their experience led them to. I just think that's beautiful.
I do
I
too.
really do. I just think it's beautiful.
And I've
And
met
for you,
some like you through podcasting, through that have, due to their own lived experience, and usually it's something pretty gritty that leads them to the place where they are open to kind of using that to serve others through helping or
I agree
whatever.
with you.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah, and I've arrived to that. Even though if I probably had my, if I had my crystal ball, I wouldn't return to a regular working gig. I can see shards of light in that too, because in the role I'm going to be doing, I'm going to be able to interact with people. And
That's
I'll be able to
awesome.
help people in my own way. And I don't mean that I'm going to like try and offer healing sessions to them while I'm trying to sell them some service. I
Right.
mean, even in my conversations with interviews, you wouldn't believe, Jill, or maybe you would. You probably would.
I
It
probably would.
wasn't as if I brought up things like God or the universe or everything happens for a reason. I get on a call and I hold a calm space of being me and authentic, and they start talking about it. And I'm like, is this happening right now?
Like you're
And
watching it.
yeah, and yeah, so I'm observing me, observing this, and I'm like, this is really freaking cool.
Trippy.
Much of the reason because I have come to realize that many people have these same types of feelings. Maybe not in the same way that I do, but I mean, I'll say my wife and I sat down to. She had a lease on a car, and we were going to buy it out, and we'll have it long term. And the sales rep who was talking about it, she's like, you know how in the universe things just sort of happen for a reason? And I looked at my wife. She's like, don't say it. Just don't even say it. Because everything's connected for you, Adam. Everything's connected. I'm like, so I bring that up to say, even when I go to some, to this job and I'm doing that, I'll get to interact with people that I haven't met yet. And
Yeah.
the amazing experiences that may happen with that are going to be wonderful. Is it going to be great every day? No, it won't. There's going to be things that are going to be, pencil
Suck.
pushing stuff.
Maybe.
But there's going to be elements of me that you hear right now, and anyone who watches this hears too. And I just think that is beautiful. I just think it's amazing. And that's not an ego thing. It's just more of like, I just love interacting with people and having them be themselves. Because I do believe if every single one of the 8.5 billion or whatever people on this current planet would do that, the world would be a majestically wonderful place.
Yeah.
And I believe it already is for those of us who choose that.
Yeah. I believe that. I do. Am away. We're struggle with a little bit with the way that we're being manipulated and
Yeah.
kind of harvested.
Right. I agree.
But I know I'm one of those that are perpetrating that same thing. We're all getting back to the garden.
I agree.
So
Yeah, and and your listeners probably are kind of more read into that even than I am, and you probably are more than me. But just mentioning that the evildoers, if you will, of the world, I believe that you should educate yourself on that and understand things like aura, biofield,
right.
the chills that you and I have talked about, and if that resonates for people, you should look into that and decide what you think about it. For
Right.
those that are like, not for me or not yet, listen to yourself, trust your own intuition, and certainly think about what might be perpetrated on us right now, but also don't just stay focused on like the awfulness of a situation, because that will bring on more awfulness. Like if you only focus on car crashes, well, let's use like an algorithm. If you go on YouTube, maybe not so much Rumble, so sorry YouTube, but if you go on YouTube and you look up car crashes, I'm sure there's going to be a lot more car crash videos that come into that algorithm.
Yeah.
I think it's the same thing in life. If
You magnetize it.
Right. If you anticipate getting in a traffic jam every day, I think by God, you're probably going to have traffic jams, because the universe is thinking, well, I guess this guy wants traffic jams. I don't understand why, but if that's what he wants, I mean, knock yourself out. That's what I mean, and trying to put a little humor on it. Like,
Yeah.
understand that there's awful things, and that you want to try and help and find whatever way you can to help people.
Yeah.
Doesn't dismiss that, but find a way to convert the duality of darkness and light within all of us. Convert that to light somehow and help other people. And I'll go as far to say, duality, evil versus good. I don't really think that's the point. Not that it doesn't exist, but meaning experience what is happening in front of you, decide the path you want to go to, and I would love to implore everyone to go towards a good way of helping people as opposed to the opposite. But if that's what you decide to do, we all have free will and choice to do that.
Yeah.
That wouldn't be my choice. I would choose to want to help, even if I get nothing in return, because I get a ton in return. Just by even a conversation with you, Jill. Like, I feel built up from this. I can tell you when I did your last healing session before this, so I was feeling pretty good, but I was a little more exhausted earlier in the day. And I wasn't sure how I was gonna sort of stand up to like going on an hour plus conversation with you. Not because I didn't want to do it, but I was like, okay, I got to get ready. But
no, it's energetically, it can be taxing. That's, yeah.
It is.
I believe that.
So, but even during this conversation, I just feel lighter, happier, calmer. So Jill, in your own way, I mean, you're a healer too. Or maybe you are and you haven't shared that with me yet, but
a little bit.
You could use the term healer kind of loose and fast. I tend to do it that way.
Yeah.
Everyone's either helping each other, or they're hurting each other, or they're neutral. And I choose to help others, which in turn helps myself.
Love it. We all have the potential to be healers, I believe.
I do too.
Yeah, I do believe I am to a degree. This is for another conversation, but I did cast a demon out of my son.
Yeah.
Which was a pretty powerful experience. Yeah. Laying on of hands, and it wasn't done in really a religious way. It was tuning into his belief system and kind of going for it,
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, I did want to, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I have an experience then to share with you about this.
Oh, cool.
Can you give me a little more about what led you? I know this is your interview to me, so if
Right.
I can't ask questions, that's okay. But I'd love to hear like what led you to decide you were going to try that? Did you already have that within yourself to think you would do it, or it's just like, hey, the chips are down and I got to do something for my son, so this is what I'm doing? How did you get led to that?
Probably a little bit of both. I was really involved in Lori Ladd's community, and I'm trying to connect that with the demon. And there was a lot of talk about, now knowing, where'd you go? Knowing Sabrina, just maybe it's a computer program or something. I don't know, the demonic aspects or whatever, that whole concept. But my son has some behavioral like issues where he gets really stuck on something, and it can escalate to violence because it's almost like something gets turned on and it's not going to get turned off until it cycles through.
Right.
And it feels like it's not him. So he was doing it. He was in the state one night, and I was thinking about probably something I learned or heard in my other spiritual community and talked to friends about. And I just had this impulse to do it. And and he listens to me. I believe we have a soul contract, and he's the only one in my family is in kind of in the same space with a disability. And I only see the disability as in the physicality. I think in the rest of the realms is he's just perfect, and a lot helps me a lot. So anyways, we have a great connection, and he trusts me. So he was going off, and I went in, I looked him in the eyes, and I started talking to the demon. I could see, like, in his eyes, there was something that was not him. Uh, and it had taken him over. And you call it what you want, but I told it to get out. And I put my hand on his shoulder, and I, like, I prayed, and I was prepared for this in whatever way I could be. And I could feel like the energy flowing into him. And I could see some come over him, and he burst into tears, right on the spot. And that was the end.
Wow.
And he told me what he heard: a growl and a bark. And
Wow.
pretty powerful experience. And my partner heard it, and he's not really in the same space, but he was, I say, he was pretty impressed. He saw it more from, like, I was going for anything to stop this behavior, like throwing it all in, like, but he was like, hey, good job.
And I would say the same. Very, very
Yeah.
well done. That you would, I like you. You could say that whatever you want. If you're more on the spiritual side, you could say, oh, that was a demon, or I exorcised something. Or you could say, like you mentioned, it's a program that's running. Why is it there? Who knows why
Yeah.
it is? Is it because we watch too much TV? Is it because we do this, that? I don't think it matters about the labels, which I think that
Yeah.
that can cause people to be, like, concerned, I guess
That's
I'd say.
right. Like, yeah.
How long ago
Go to the
was that?
mental institution. It was before we moved, so I'd say like last October or November.
I gotcha. Well, that's
Yeah.
beautiful. And how has it been
Thank
since
you.
then, though?
I'm trying to think. We had one incident after we moved where he asked me to help him. And so we did the same thing. It wasn't quite as powerful. I was a little aggravated with him. I didn't have the level of compassion that I had in the first incident, but I was able to kind of put aside my own and go lay hand on him. And, we prayed a little, and same thing, but he really has made huge improvements. And I feel like it's in our dynamic too, the trust there, that he trusts what I'm teaching him. And he teaches more than I teach him. I'm always learning from my kids, always learning.
Yeah, and for
But
those
thank you for letting me share that.
Of course, you're
On
welcome.
my interview of you.
Yeah, well, it's
Kind of relevant.
It is relevant, and I'll share an experience with you now that you
Oh,
brought it up,
good.
because I wasn't going to until now. But I will say, and he's your biological child, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to okay.
Yeah.
So if people want to do research on, like, the science behind this, you can knock yourself out. When you, as a woman, with the divine right and gift to carry a child to term, you share DNA anyway, and the father shares DNA too. That's not dismissing that, but your DNA in that child, this is ridiculous amount of chills now. This is great. When you carry that child to term, I'm even getting emotional about it, your DNA is forever attached. It's part of you. So that communication that you have with your son is something that's just innately divine and powerful, more so than if it's a friend or even a father or something like that. So that connection between the two of you is powerful in the way that what you described, or even you can know each other's thoughts potentially.
Yeah.
I'm not claiming telepathy. I'm just saying you think about someone calling you and all of a sudden the phone rings and it's your son, like that type of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, those things are scientific in nature too. It's not just a spiritual thing. It's
100%.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. All right, so I'll share
Please.
this now with you. So most of my early healing sessions, I wanted permission, meaning that, kind of like with you, like you mentioned you got sick on Monday, and I was like, hey, is it okay that I do this? And if people ask questions, that's better. I want to say, here's what you do. It's not very much involved. Like, just lay down or be in a non-stressful place, and I'll do the rest. God will do the rest. And I did that for a period of time, and I started to come around to saying, well, and I don't think it's rationalization, although some people might think so. I'm like, well, if I'm coming from my heart and this is really from God and I'm healing, then I don't necessarily have to ask permission. And some people may not give permission that really need the help. So who am I to kind of dismiss that? So I haven't done too many that way, but I have done a few. And one of them is a friend of mine that I talked to for a while on X, and I've talked to him on the phone and such, but he was kind of going in a different direction, didn't have as much time, he got busy with things. But one night I woke at like, I don't know, 1 in the morning or 2 in the morning, and I thought of him. And I thought, I'm going to do a healing session for him. And I had done one before, so like he gave me permission before, and I felt like, okay, I'm sure he would say yes, so I'm just going to ask.
Ask for forgiveness, not permission.
Right, I'm just going to declare. I don't tend to think in terms of prayers, I think in terms of declaration.
Okay.
Because I'm declaring what is happening right now. So like with you, Jill, and with most of the people that I work with now, if you're sick, I don't talk about you being sick. I talk about right now your health and your vitality is perfected and complete. It's already done, as if it already happened, because I believe the universe can hear that. It hears, okay, this guy doesn't want traffic jams. He wants clear sailing, open roads. And does that mean it's going to happen every time? No.
Yeah.
But it certainly doesn't mean it's not going to happen every time. So that's the way in which I think of that. You're already healed. You're already
Love that.
perfected. You're already. So I decided that whatever in the morning, I went on X, and some of his posts kind of concerned me a little bit for him. Like he'd posted on some things. I'm like, I don't think he's in a good place. And so I decided to drop into a healing session for him. And Jill, when I dropped into a healing session, I don't always get visuals. I don't always see things, but I see them a lot. It can be faces. It can be faces of the person that I'm focusing on. It can be a landscape. It can be a beautiful thing that's almost like a movie set. Well, that's what I came into this. I came into, like, if you can imagine like an apocalyptic nuclear war type thing with bomb blasts going off and whatever else, I was in it.
Oof.
And even seeing those things, I never felt unsafe. I felt, and it felt beautiful in the visuals that it was. Not that a nuclear war is beautiful, but meaning like nothing felt like it was going to harm me.
Okay.
But in this particular session, I dropped in and saw that, and I was like, this is new. This is interesting. Okay. And then laying there, I was just laying in bed doing this. My heart started thumping in a way that felt almost like, is this real? Do I need to go to the hospital about what I'm feeling? Like, is this a heart arrhythmia? I didn't know what it was.
Wow.
And I stayed in for maybe, I don't know, 10 minutes or something. I just felt there's something in here either trying to attack me. And I don't know, maybe it's him, maybe he's in a bad place. I don't know. I mean, it's late at night. Maybe he was, I don't know if he drinks, but maybe he was out drinking. Maybe he was just in some place that was not his own, it was not his best self, put it that way.
Yeah.
But so I left that healing session because I felt unsafe. That's the first time and the last time I felt.
Wow.
Because then, so I thought about that the next day, and I'm like, well, I'm never doing that again. Well, Joe, you probably know me enough where I'm like, no, I'm going to figure out some way.
You're all in.
Right. That's right. There you go. So, so I decided to think about, okay, well, if this was him that was battling this, or if it was some part of him within him, or something else, which I don't know how I feel about that. I haven't seen anything, and I didn't see anything in the dream, the visualization that would indicate it.
Yeah.
So, but about 5 days later, I dropped back into a healing session, and I came prepared. I was prepared, kind of like you might have done with your son. Like, I had anxiety heading into that, which is the only time I've had it, because I'd had this heart thing, and I was like, I'm going to come in prepared.
Yeah.
Divine
That's a little
protection.
scary.
It is. Divine protection from God, and I was just going to run right into it, but I felt armored. And I didn't have the same visual, but I definitely had a lot of, I want to say, resistance to like the things that I was reciting, which is like, if there's any spirits or entities or energies within this person that does not belong, meaning I'm not an expert at what belongs in a person or not. So I'm not removing something. I'm saying, I am removing it, but I'm saying whatever is not to be in this person, based on divine creation of God, you are banished and you are gone. This person is free from intrusion. And that lit up all over my body of chills and everything else. And by the time that that session was done, I couldn't see anything. Everything seemed like it was cleared, like out of it or whatever. I haven't talked to him since then, and I decided not to like come back and say, hey, did you feel this? Did you know
Yeah.
I did it? Because it wasn't really meant for me to be like, look at this thing I did for you, or
Right.
how are you feeling, whatever. I just cleared it because I felt like I needed to, because I aborted that other session.
Yeah.
So when you brought that up about your son, like
That's really interesting.
I think so too.
Yeah.
So I'm not claiming that I'm going to go out and be an exorcist or whatever else. That's not what I mean. But I definitely have that in my healing sessions now. Even with you, I said, right now I demand and command. These are the words I use.
Yes.
I demand and command that Jill is free from intrusion. That any spirits or entities or energies that do not belong within her by divine right and creation are gone. She is free from intrusion. And most of my healing session is about declarations, but I demand and command those specific things, because if something is not supposed to be in there, I believe they're supposed to be out, and I believe that faith is what happens. So anyway,
Yeah.
I wasn't going to share that, but you took us on that
Oh,
track,
thank
and I love
you.
that you did. You're welcome.
I'd say, or I learned something from this teacher, Lori, like all beings that are not for the highest and best of kind of right along the same lines. And that, yeah, I like the idea of a declaration.
Yeah.
I'm going to take that.
Yeah,
But
if it works for you, great. Yeah, and
yeah,
all of the things that I focus on are saying, if you want to be healthy, I would suggest that we not frame it in, please God, I don't want to be sick anymore. I don't want to be sick. I'm sick right now. I don't want to be sick. You're saying sick so many times in that's just going to bring that on, is what that's how
I agree.
People could disagree with that. I focus on what this person does want, or what this person is looking for, as opposed to what they're not. Because you attract what you focus on, and what you focus on is attracting to you.
Yep. And that's all scientific too, because we are electromagnetic beings. So we magnetize that energy actually of that. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. Now I did want to ask you, how has your family been? And you don't need to like give names, or just
Right.
as I got to wrap this up pretty soon, but yeah, if you could just give me a little taste of that, because you've made some pretty intense changes, and
Yeah.
I know that you've got a whole bunch of people around you, so
Yeah, I will say it like this. Like I am blessed with a blended family of 5 kids, and a wonderful wife
awesome.
that is supportive in the best ways that she can be. She doesn't necessarily understand, nor do my kids. Like, they don't understand
Oh yeah.
all of why I'm drawn to what I'm doing. Some of it's scary, some of it's fearful, and it's a lot of change over a small amount of time. So
Yeah.
that's not lost on me. Here's how I look at that too. I sometimes I'll still be feeling like it's limiting. Like, well, if I could do whatever I wanted, I could go out and do this and that and all those other things. And sure, I could focus on that. But they also help me stay grounded, especially my wife.
Yeah.
Like, she asks me a lot of questions, and she's like, I need you to be able to hold a space for me to ask questions at them. And like, you're not going to like everything that I ask, and some things I'm not going to condone. And that's hard on me, because I want to be this big open heart.
Yep.
But that also really helps keep my feet on the proverbial ground, because then I really know whether or not it's a path that I'm going to choose, or am I just trying every flavor of ice cream. So that's the best way I would frame it that
Yeah.
way. Like, and it does make it hard though on a family, because most dads are just going to go to work and come home, and you complain a little bit about stuff, and you make a
Right.
good living, and you sit down and watch TV and at dinner and all that, and that's obviously
It's not your path. Not mine
path.
either. Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
It does. And I can tell, yeah, I feel like that's a big part of why you've been able to, I don't know, we need those people. I know my husband, partner, does the same. Not in the same space, but I know sometimes I feel defeated or deflated by some of our conversations, but that's a learning experience for me too. Now, everybody is going to receive
Correct.
the word of the Lord.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's I probably should. Well, I will be more vocal, with her in particular, but just in general. It is a good thing because they're being themselves too, right?
Yeah.
They're experiencing whatever they're experiencing. It's just not on the same level, and it's not right or wrong. It just is what it is. So, like you said, find lessons and find joy even when it's not joyful. I mean, in reality, it's not always joyful. Find joy in every situation because there's an opportunity there. And you and I being believers in the Lord and what's happening, in whatever context that is, there's a reason why these things are being placed in front of you.
Yeah.
They might not always be blockers the way I or you or others might tend to look at them. Like, look at them for what the goodness and the lessons that you can see in it. I take that back about the goodness. It doesn't matter about the goodness or the badness, the rightness or wrongness.
Yeah, I know what you mean, though.
So that grounding is important. It's a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's a great topic you bring up because it's probably a lot of people you and I interact with on X, like they've been so open and so free to some things. They've either been cut off from their family or they don't interact as much, and that's okay. I know that happens. I don't mean it's okay like those that might feel alone about it, but for those of us who are making a go of trying to balance 3D and 4D, 5D, like you and I think are.
Yep.
Like, you got to have sort of 1 foot in, 1 foot out, and you have to try and balance what that is. And I continue wanting to say good. There's lessons to learn and opportunities and gifts in that everywhere. 100%. Doesn't mean it's easy, but it's worth it.
No. Yeah. And I think you're right. There is a lot of people that are in the circles that we are in that have that. And I have that in my own family. So,
I do too.
and I'm grateful for it on lots of levels because it would be really weird if everybody was just glommed on to the same thing. There'd be no contrast.
That's right.
So
That's right.
there's that
That's
too.
right. Yeah, the contrast and the balance in that is huge. And I don't. I will raise my hand to say I don't always give that the credit that is due. But I am getting better, even specifically the last several days. So I think it's timely that we're talking about that and that you bring up that question without even knowing that I would have a better answer right now than I probably would have 3 weeks ago, or maybe even on Monday. When we had to move it. I think it's timely. Yeah.
Good. I'm glad. Yeah, I just our families and the people around us in our lives are just so important, as you know. Everybody's important, but well, as we wrap this up, I did want to just mention that the healing session you did for me, the healing sessions, because you said you did 3. I felt
I like to work in threes for
in
whatever
threes.
reason. Yeah, I feel like 1 is just not quite enough, and 2's good, but I feel like 3 kind of gives me a couple at bats, if you will, about it. So, is it needed? Probably not, but that's kind of how I work.
I say go with it. That's what works, and I did want to say I did feel better. Yeah. I was sick. It was I can think of all kinds of labels and reasons and whatnot, but you had mentioned to me that you were going to be starting, and I laid down and I was overwhelmingly exhausted and took a nap, and I felt, the rest of the day I felt much better, and I continued to feel better into yesterday. So I mean, I wasn't better the whole 100% the whole time, but I mean, it definitely cleared some. I felt something shifted a little bit. So I recommend.
Well, I appreciate the recommendation, but most importantly, I'm glad that you feel better. And again, like I said, whether it was something that worked through me, or because you believed that someone believed in your health, or because it was just time for you to recover from it, to me, it doesn't matter the reason why. The output's what matters. I'm glad you're feeling better. I'm glad you're on the mend. That's wonderful to hear. I'm happy for you.
I love that approach. It's so non-egoic.
That's right.
Good job. Really, it's so, and I appreciate that about you. You just come through, just blasting with, and the word authenticity is overused, but yeah, that's, I feel, just holds a great space. And so, and keep
Thank you.
going on your podcast. I think, did you have anything else you wanted to share before we wrap this up and my battery on my computer dies? But
No, I appreciate the willingness and the trust to talk with me and ask me questions. You know, I felt like eventually there'd be, you know, someone or multiple someones who'd want to ask about it, and I was happy to, you know, I'm happy to talk. You know how much I like to talk. Everyone now knows if they watched, you know, this long. I appreciate you affording me the time and
oh
the
gosh,
opportunity, and I hope that. I hope that everyone can find some inspiration to be themselves, whether it's on words that you've said or words that I've said, or just, you know, just for you all, just be your own light. And thank you.
thank you,
Jill.
Adam.
All
So
right.
yeah, just stay on for a minute after I end
Okay.
this. All right,
All
and
right.
we'll
I
put the
appreciate
links
you.
in the notes for
Sounds
your.
good.
All right.
Thank you.